Sun Tzu versus Shaka Zulu, the ultimate clash of military geniuses. Two names stand like towering monuments in the history of warfare. From the ancient East emerges Sun Tzu, the philosopher general who shaped the very essence of strategy with his timeless masterpiece, The Art of War. And from the southern lands of Africa comes Shaka Zulu, the warrior king whose battlefield innovations created an empire feared by all who opposed it. Each man changed the art of war forever, but what if these two military geniuses were to meet on the same field of battle? How would the wisdom of the strategist fare against the ferocity of the warrior? This imagined encounter is not about deciding who would triumph, but about uncovering the lessons they left behind. Their approaches couldn't be more different, yet one truth remains. They both achieved mastery of war. Let us unravel this hypothetical clash of titans. Our journey begins over 2,500 years ago in ancient China, where a book titled The Art of War became an unmatched guide to strategy. Its author, Sun Tzu, is often described as the world's first military theorist. But what set him apart wasn't just his ability to lead armies, it was the depth of thought he applied to warfare. Sun Tzu didn't see war as mere violence. To him, it was a craft, an intricate game of deception, timing, and psychology. He believed the greatest victories were those won without lifting a single sword. The supreme art of war, he wrote, is to subdue the enemy without fighting. His teachings emphasized knowing your enemy, timing your moves, and exploiting their weaknesses. Sun Tzu understood that brute force could only take an army so far. Victory required the mind to be sharper than the blade. Among his key principles was the ability to adapt. Be as formless as water, he insisted, urging his followers to respond to situations without rigidity. And when the time came to fight, his philosophy remained clear. Use the terrain, create confusion, and strike precisely where the enemy least expects it. For centuries, from ancient Chinese dynasties to modern military academies, Sun Tzu's words shaped the minds of strategists. Yet his brilliance wasn't forged in isolation. It was born of observation, a clarity of thought into how human conflict operates. But how would these principles fare against a man who reshaped the battlefield itself? Fast forward to the early 19th century, to the kingdom of the Zulu nation in southern Africa. Here stands Shaka Zulu, a man whose ambition, ingenuity, and sheer willpower transformed his people into a military powerhouse. Shaka wasn't just a warrior. He was a visionary who saw war not as a means to an end, but as a tool to carve an enduring legacy. Before Shaka, war among the Zulu and neighboring tribes was often ceremonial with minimal casualties. Shaka shattered this tradition with brutal efficiency. He reinvented warfare, building an army that valued discipline, speed, and strategic brilliance. His weapon of choice? The ikalwa, a short stabbing spear that turned close combat into a deadly art. For Shaka, warfare wasn't a distant puzzle. Victory was achieved face-to-face with blood and sweat. His legendary bullhorn formation revolutionized tactics. The structure split his forces into three parts: the horns that encircled and flanked the enemy, the chest that delivered the crushing frontal attack, and the loins, a reserve force that could pivot when needed. This approach was as effective as it was devastating, overwhelming even the most prepared armies. Shaka's success didn't rest solely on weapons or formations. He believed in the power of endurance. His warriors went barefoot over rugged terrain to hone their physical resilience. His soldiers were disciplined, loyal, and conditioned to fight under grueling conditions. Yet amidst his aggression, Shaka displayed tactical subtlety. He could feint retreats, draw enemies into traps, and strike decisively when the moment called for it. But would the ferocity of Shaka's innovation be able to counter the timeless strategy of Sun Tzu? Before diving into their approaches, let's set the stage for this hypothetical clash. This isn't about comparing an ancient Chinese dynasty with 19th century Africa. It's about imagining how these men, their minds, and their methodologies might interact. Picture a neutral landscape, an open plain flanked by dense forests and rocky hills. Both leaders have armies matching their historical strengths. Sun Tzu commanding tens of thousands with a structured blend of infantry and cavalry, and Shaka leading a disciplined Zulu impi armed with Ikilwa spears and shields of hardened oxhide. Sun Tzu builds his battlefield on calculated restraint. Shaka commands with fiery determination and bold execution. Victory will hinge not just on weapons, but on which leader can impose their will on the other. As the hypothetical battle begins, Sun Tzu likely refrains from engaging directly. His philosophy demands the gathering of intelligence first, analyzing the terrain, probing the weaknesses of Shaka's forces. He uses hit-and-run tactics, attacking supply lines and crafting illusions to bewilder Shaka's warriors. Imagine Sun Tzu deploying psychological warfare, burning small outposts, leaking misinformation, or staging retreats to deceive Shaka into moving where terrain gives Sun Tzu the advantage. He may exploit Shaka's preference for aggressive confrontation, luring him into ambushes. Sun Tzu's principle of formlessness would aid him. His army could adapt and flow like water to meet Shaka's bold movements. Yet against an enemy as relentless as Shaka, could restraint and strategy alone win the day? What happens when plans meet the storm of adrenaline-fueled warriors who refuse to break? Shaka, on the other hand, would waste no time deciphering Sun Tzu's hesitance. His warriors are conditioned for direct combat. Their very essence is built on closing the distance and striking swiftly. Shaka's bullhorn formation would apply relentless pressure, flanking Sun Tzu's forces while delivering a crushing central assault. The speed of the Zulu impi would be Shaka's greatest asset. His army could cover ground faster than anticipated, denying Sun Tzu time to implement elaborate traps. Even ambushes might fail if Zulu scouts uncovered their presence. If Sun Tzu's forces faltered under the initial attack, Shaka's reserves would deliver the knockout blow. But Shaka was not without caution. He understood the costs of overextension. Knowing Sun Tzu's tendency toward deception, Shaka might hold back his reserve troops, using them to counter ambushes or to reinforce his lines. Would Sun Tzu's carefully laid strategies unravel under the sheer ferocity of Shaka's tactics? Or would the philosopher's calm outwit the warrior's storm? While their methods seem vastly different, Sun Tzu and Shaka Zulu shared critical commonalities. Both understood discipline as the backbone of their forces. Where Shaka conditioned his men to endure pain and fatigue, Sun Tzu demanded unwavering unity and obedience. Both believed in adaptability, Shaka innovating on the battlefield in real time, Sun Tzu teaching commanders to shift strategies as situations evolve. Yet their contrasts are glaring. Sun Tzu avoided unnecessary conflict, seeking to dismantle enemies without committing large forces. Shaka embraced warfare as a tool for dominance, forging empires through sustained aggression. Sun Tzu was the craftsman of subtlety, Shaka the blacksmith of fire and iron. This imagined duel isn't about declaring a winner. It's about exploring two incredible minds, each in pursuit of mastery in their own way. From Sun Tzu, we learn that preparation, foresight, and psychological insight are as vital as muscle and steel. From Shaka, we're reminded that boldness, innovation, and adaptability can overwhelm even the greatest plans. Modern leaders, whether in business, politics, or personal ventures, can take lessons from both men. The balance of thought and action, strategy and decisiveness, remains as relevant today as it was in their eras. As the dust settles on this battlefield of the imagination, the question lingers: who would truly prevail? Perhaps it doesn't matter. What endures isn't the imagined outcome of their contest, but the lasting brilliance both men brought to the art of war. Sun Tzu's wisdom echoes through millennia, a calm and calculated voice teaching us that victory begins in the mind. Shaka Zulu's spirit roars through history, a testament to the power of courage and innovation in the face of adversity. In the end, they are as much teachers as they are warriors. Their legacies aren't confined to history books, but live on in the way humanity fights, leads, and learns. And so, dear viewers, as this epic tale draws to a close, we leave you with a final challenge. What lessons will you take from these legends of war?